Dan Ward. Both these players 7-1. And Dan Ward with a, look at that blue Chicago Bulls head right there.
Dan Ward has some style, no doubt about it. Dan is playing Bant Company, one of the top decks in Standard for sure. A little bit of metagame spice here. He's playing 3 main deck copies of Dromoka's Command, which we don't see in a lot of Bant Company lists. Certainly not unheard of, but it's not the most popular card. That's going to serve him very well in this matchup against Tenjum, who has a lot of small creatures, 4 main deck copies of Stasis Snare, and 4 main deck copies of Silk Grass. So Dromoka's Command could be a very valuable swing card for Ward in this matchup.
Yeah, Tenjum, along with most of his teammates on Team Lotus, playing a deck deemed Big White.
Yes.
Much like Big Red decks, this Big White deck is all the expensive and good white cards and a bunch of lands, and not very much card drawing. But the thought process here is, all our cards are so powerful, if I have enough lands to cast them, chances are I'm going to win.
Yeah, there's some shades of the black-white Eldrazi deck here, except it's just white. There's no black cards.
For Ward, a Lumbering Falls and a Forest. Into a Sylvan Advocate. For Tenjum, he's got a Plains and a Foundry of the Council and a Silk Wrap. Now Ward, you'll see with that mana, as he does play a Duskwatch Recruiter. No white mana just yet here for Big Dan.
And that's something we're seeing a lot more in this Standard format with the 3-color decks. The mana just isn't as good as it used to be. So people are playing with only 2 colors for a much larger period of the game than they used to.
For Tenjum, another Silk Wrap. You saw the land for the turn was a Westvale Abbey. We head back Dan Ward's way. The Recruiter, a very powerful card. Morphs can be powerful as well, as Ward also plays a Lumbering Falls and passes the turn back. That Morph likely to be a Den Protector, could also be a Hidden Dragon Slayer. You don't see these Bant Company decks currently playing any copies of Deathmish Raptor.
A lot of high-quality 3s, and the deck is already so good at battling some sort of attrition fight that Deathmish Raptor really isn't necessary.
Got a 3-bit Inspector here from Tenjum. He gets a clue, immediately sacrifices it to try to end a land drop, which it appears as though he's done with the Caves of Koilos. Back over to Ward we go. Here comes the Morph. 2 damage will come through. Tenjum will fall down to 18. And Ward will simply pass the turn back. Now, it's interesting because a lot of the times make a joke here of, oh, poor Dan, he's got nothing to do. But actually, in this instance, he may have nothing to do because of the lack of white mana.
Could be Collected Company. His draw could still be fine, even in the absence of white mana, but it's possible he's also sitting on a handful of white cards he can't cast right now.
Reflector Mage, Dromoka's Command, Odishai's Command, stuff like that is things that he could have in his hand that he actually can't cast.
Eldrazi Displacer as well.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of white cards in the deck.
Well, it does appear as though he does have a Collected Company, however, so he will resolve that. Top 6 cards, he'll hopefully take 2 of them and put them on the battlefield.
And assuming the Morph here is Den Protector, as we assume, being able to get back the Collected Company means that Dan's got a lot of juice over the next couple of turns, even if he continues to miss white mana.
Reflector Mage and Bounding Crassus are going to enter the battlefield. Reflector Mage will take care of the Inspector. And now Tenjum may have an effect on the end step. We'll see.
This be a really good spot to take care of that Morph if he can.
Well, he is reaching for the mana. He's going to take 1. I think we're going to see a Stasis Snare, and we will.
Yeah. Even though Ward is missing white mana right now, you can tell why I think Dromoka's Command could be a big swing card in this matchup. A lot of Tenjum's removal is predicated on enchantment staying on the battlefield.
And it was a Den Protector, though here come the beatdowns from the Crassus and the Mage. Tenjum will fall down to 12. A Lumbering Falls here for Dan. And now it looks like a copy of Jace. The powerful Planeswalker will resolve, and we head back Tenjum's way.
Jace also a nice payoff here for Ward if he can keep it on the battlefield. He can loot and try to get to white mana, unlock the rest of his hand. If it stays on the battlefield uncontested, he can eventually flash back that Collected Company. If Tenjum spends time trying to answer the Jace, well, Ward's attacking for 5 right now, and Tenjum's already fairly low.
You see the difference in Jace now, though. Only 1 card in the graveyard.
It's not like it used to be.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't think people necessarily acknowledge how much Flooded Strand and Windswept Heath, etc., had to do with Jace's power level in the previous Standard format. Still a very good card, but does not flip over as reliably as it used to.
Declaration in Stone will take care of the Planeswalker, and now here comes another Declaration in Stone to take care of the Bounding Crassus. So Ward will be given 2 clues, and he'll sacrifice 1 of them to draw a card right now. Still on the hunt for white mana, but still operating just fine. You see Ward can actually consider firing up a Lumbering Falls this turn if he'd like.
Yeah, well, I think right now he's kind of on the hunt for white mana. He's got a clue in play, other spells in his hand. Spending the turn just activating Lumbering Falls with Tenjum at 11 seems a little mopey to me. And now with white mana, I think he's probably got better stuff to do.
And you saw the Prairie Stream, but what came before it might be the more interesting of the 2 cards. It's Tireless Tracker. That gives Ward a clue. And as we saw last weekend in Baltimore when Jim Davis won, Jim didn't have a lot of this card, neither does Dan, but this is a heck of a card right here.
And Ward right now is kind of in best of both worlds territory, where he's winning the short game right now. He's got a lot more pressure on the battlefield than Tenjum, who's kind of floundering to keep up. And with multiple clues in play, plus the tracker, may even have a better long game than Tenjum right now.
Tenjum will draw. He needs to actually do some of the powerful things that his big white deck can accomplish. So I'm talking Archangel of Ties, Archangel Avacyn, Gideon Ally of Zendikar. I mean, the removal is nice, but he's still just getting beaten down.
And I think Declaration in Stone is a fairly big cost for mid-range decks that I think is underappreciated right now. If you're playing a beatdown deck, you kill people before they deploy their clues. If you're playing a really controlling deck, you might trump your opponent even if they're drawing multiple cards. Tenjum's deck is ultimately trading 1-for-1, and I think for these mid-range decks, 4X Declaration in Stone may not be the best thing for all of these matchups.
Throw an Inspector, sacrifice a clue, then play another Inspector is the plan here for Tenjum. So he's got a fresh clue, but what he doesn't have is a 5th land. His Ward is going to quickly untap and take a draw. He'll play a land. It's a Prairie Stream. Get another clue. Tireless Tracker looking to grow. And in these mid-range matchups, Tireless Tracker may be king. It's a heck of a card.
Everything. Ward has a lot of threats that require immediate responses, and he can extract value from a lot of these cards, even if they are answered immediately. If they go uncontested, they accrue a huge amount of value. Again, best of both worlds territory here. He's winning the game short, and he's winning the game long.
The Inspector is going to chump block. A Sylvan Advocate to 4/5 now, which means those Lumbering Falls will be 5/5s. And life is pretty good here for Dan Ward and his Bant Company deck. For Tenjum, he's stumbling and fumbling. And he's never really gotten off the ground yet this game. He'll sacrifice a clue with those colorless lands, draw a card. Does he have a 5th land to play? It's a Case of Koilos, but is it too late? So it appears as though all he can do is pass the turn back. Ward will sacrifice a clue, put a counter on the tracker. He'll sacrifice another clue, which means he'll put another counter on the tracker. And now, while Ward only has 1 mana available, Tenjum might make his move with a Stasis Snare. Again, this weekend, Andrew does have 4 of those and 4 copies of Silk Wrap. Ward will draw a card. He'll play a land. Get a clue, thanks to the tracker, who's currently at 6/5, by the way. Just kind of rewards you from playing a normal game of Magic.
Yep. Investment required is pretty low. Upside is pretty big in games that are going on for a long time.
Here come the beatdowns. You see the Inspector is going to get in front of Sylvan Advocate. There is a Stasis Snare. It's a painful one. He's got to take a point of damage to cast it. And it looks like that's going to go after the Tireless Tracker. And now Reflector Mage will get its 2 points of damage through. And we can really come back to see, and you mentioned this right at the top, Jamoka's Command playing a huge role in things here. And it's interesting, right, because Ward hasn't played one this game, but he's got so many in his deck. And if you're keeping up with the Bant Company decks, there aren't a lot of Jamoka's Commands in those decks.
Interesting enough, I think Ward may have had the kill on the table last turn if he fired up a Lumbering Falls and set that in, but I think he was so far ahead that he could afford to play conservatively, give Tenjum 1 more turn, gas up with clues, and probably just attack for lethal the following turn.
Dan Ward wins game number 1 here over Andrew Tenjum. His Bant Company currently up a game over Big White. As we move our attention to the sideboard, and we'll take a look at what Tenjum is working with here. Now, this is where his deck gets a little bit interesting. You see 4 Thought-Knot Seers, 2 Reality Smashers, 2 Secure the Waste, 2 Hollowed Moonlight, 2 Planar Outburst, 2 Linvala the Preserver, and a Gideon Ally of Zendikar. He can really change his deck around now.
So I think the Hollowed Moonlights are fairly easy to bring in this kind of matchup. I don't know if he's going to want to go to the bigger threats than Thought-Knot Seer and Reality Smasher, but a lot of his threats on the ground are just not very well suited to play this sort of game. Bant Company puts a lot of stats on the ground, very good at attacking and blocking that sort of game, and Thought-Knot Seer and Reality Smasher might be better threats than something like Gideon Ally of Zendikar.
On the other side here for Dan Ward, a lot of 2s and 1s here. As he's got a Declaration in Stone, 2 Eerie Interlude, a Tragic Arrogance, a Sorek the Hunt Caller, a Stratus Dancer, a Hidden Dragon Slayer to kind of mix up that morph package along with another copy of Den Protector, a Dispel, a Clip Wings, an Ochi's Command, 2 Lantern Scout, and 2 Negates.
Ward's sideboard is a smattering of all different kind of stuff, but he can make his deck a little bit more high power and a little more resistant in a long game, which is probably what he's going to want to do here. I can see, Declaration of Stone, Tragic Arrogance, Sorok the Hunt Caller even, the Stratus Dancer, the Hidden Dragon Slayer, the Den Protector. These are all just powerful 2-for-1 kind of cards that interact with a lot of what Tenjum's doing. Ward might try to take out some of the cards more geared towards beating faster decks and just load up on more individually powerful cards.
Well, that gives you an idea of what both players are working with here this weekend. As they're both 7-1, though, Andrew Tenjum's down a game. So he'll be on the play for game number 2. In the meantime, we are going to talk about StarCityGames.com Game Night, the very popular promotion where every week in April, not a time left, you can get old Poochie Pooch here.
You can get the Slobber and Mile Driver, which is a parody of Goblin Pile Driver.
There you go.
Takes some hoops to get through, but it's there. You can check it out for yourself at go.starcitygames.com/game night for more information. Find the game night closest to you. We also have a couple more of the kits here coming down the line, ready to go. May, we have the Manatiri. Did I get that? Manatiri Mentor?
Manatiri, so it's like a manatee?
Yeah, Manatiri Mentor.
There you go.
Is ready to go, trying to avoid some boat blades or whatever. And then in June, we got Otter Spell. That one speaks for itself. Go.starcitygames.com/game night. Find the game night closest to you.
This manatee awareness thing that you're on right now.
It was a seminal part of my childhood.
I can tell.
The preservation of the manatee was a big. My elementary school class. I can't remember what grade I was in. 3rd or 4th grade, probably. We adopted a manatee.
That's actually kind of awesome.
I don't even know that. It's not like they sent the manatee to the school.
Well, clearly.
It was some sort of environmental protection sort of deal. But we had a manatee.
Well, see, most people don't know what you're talking about. Andrew Tenjum, much younger than both of us, so he probably doesn't know either.
Yeah.
As we learn a little bit more about him, though I do believe you when you say that all this stuff happened. So as we learn a little bit more about Andrew Tenjum, we'll find out that he's 23. Definitely no idea what you're talking about.
He doesn't even know what a manatee is,
no,
most
probably
likely.
not.
But he does have 10 Open Series top 8s with an open win and an invitational top 8.
He was born in South Korea. Won over $20,000 playing daily fantasy sports, daily fantasy football, which I approve of.
Sign up and win today.
That's right. Anybody can win and self-proclaim.
Pick your teams.
Collect your cash.
Collect your cash.
Self-proclaimed.
Every time.
#1 Taylor Swift fan in the world, a member of Team Lotus. Yep. Just sign up.
Yeah.
They're just giving money away. Makes you wonder how they even stay in business.
Right. It's that easy.
Yep. A 3-minute specter here for Tenjum. I heard the SCG Tour just got sponsored by FanDuel, DraftKings, and every other daily fantasy website. Tenjum, we'll play a land.
There's a lot of parallels, With Magic, you just pick a deck, sign up for the tournament,
and you
collect
win.
your cash.
Yeah, that's it.
Every time.
That's it. That's just how Magic works. Tenjum will draw a card by sacrificing a clue. A Caves with Koilos, here's a beatdown. And his draw looks a little bit better this game, to say the least.
Yeah, colorless mana alongside the Displacer. Gives them a way to create more clues. That's probably a little bit too slow if Ward's got any sort of draw going, but it's a nice tool to have. And in the meantime, he's at least got some pressure going.
Yeah. Sylvan Advocate, Lumbering Falls from Dan. We head back Tenjum's way. Now, I want to see if Tenjum's brought in the Eldrazi package. Does he have Thought Knots here? Does he have Reality Smasher? Has he gone to Linvala, which you have to imagine is probably pretty good in this matchup, as there's a Battlefield Forge. This is another Displacer. Pass that turn back.
I like Thought Knots here a lot in the matchup here because it's bigger than a lot of Ward's creatures, so at least it requires double blocking or something along those lines to try to get off the battlefield. Ward's basically dealing with 2 3s and 3 3s for the most part. Also, it's disruptive, and a lot of Ward's hands are leaning on one particular card, specifically Collected Company. Reality Smasher I'm a little sketchier about because it's easier for Ward's deck to just put some numbers in front of it and try to trade it. But Thought Knot, I would be surprised if it was still in Tenjum's sideboard.
Well, I think there is a little bit of risk with Thought Knot. Reflector Mage is a disaster for that card to see.
If you're getting good selection off of it, really, Reflector Mage, it's just causing your opponent to flood out because you're stripping away spells and they're drawing random cards.
Okay.
So over the long term, they're drawing more lands than they would like to. And if you're hitting cards like Collected Company, it's super good. There is some risk. Definitely, you're not happy when your opponent's Reflector Maging it, but it's not the end of the world.
A Plains here for Tenjum. And now he's got his Eldrazi Displacer clue setup going.
Yes. For 5 mana, he can make a clue with buyback every turn, as long as he's able to keep the Inspector on the battlefield.
There's a Silk Wrap. And pass the turn back. Ward already down to 9. Much slower start here for Dan. A little bit of mana issues as well. Here comes the Sylvan Advocate. Tenjum will take the damage. Not going to block and displace the Inspector just yet. Wants to be able to leave up the ability to maybe displace something else or displace one of Dan's creatures.
Yeah, it's a nice spot for Tenjum to be in right now. If Ward puts a prohibitive blocker on the battlefield, Tenjum can simply tap that, untap and attack. If Ward doesn't do anything punishing, then Tenjum can simply get a clue here by phasing out the Inspector.
Tyler's tracker has been hit by a stasis snare. Tenjum will draw. He'll serve in with the displacers, see if Ward wants to take this 6.
And Ward's in the spot now where he's not even sure he's going to get another opportunity to chump block with Sylvan Advocate because Tenjum has the ability to tap at the next turn. If Andrew's not doing it before combat, it indicates he has something to do with all of his mana this turn. So Ward's just in a very tight spot and he knows it.
Yeah, it's one of the weird things about Displacer is that, it flickers the creature back into the battlefield, but the creature enters the battlefield tapped. So you can use it aggressively.
Yes, it is a super flexible card if the game is about combat. You can use fizzle removal spells on your own creatures, tap down potential blockers. It's very flexible.
Ah, right. He's not going to displace. He's going to cast Archangel Avacyn.
Yes.
That's a good card, too. I didn't see a lot of that through the standard round yesterday.
We saw, I would say we saw a lot of it for a 5-mana creature.
Yep.
But given the pedigree it has at this point, a little light on representation.
Tenjum will play land number 6. And I think a couple of creatures are going to come into the red zone here. Perhaps the Inspector is going to hang back on D. Here's a Eclectic Company from Dan Ward. Top 6 cards. We'll see if he can find some creatures that he likes.
I like Tenjum waiting here. Most likely the only way that Ward can stay in this game is by Collected Company and shooting the moon here. And Tenjum can mitigate a lot of that damage by simply leaving up 6 mana, 2 of which is colorless, and displacing any prohibitive blockers.
Here's a Reflector Mage and a Sylvan Advocate. The Reflector Mage will take care of that. And now, Ward does have enough stuff to block with here, though. He just attacked with, oh, now he's attacking. Okay, just want to make sure I know where we're at. And Tenjum's going to displace both these Advocates. And this is a lethal attack. So, Andrew Tenjum will win game number 2 here over Daniel Ward. Big White Bant Company getting ready here for game number 3.
So very interesting element of the standard format with the clues. Usually you have this dichotomy in Magic of land flood versus land screw, who draws out of it first. With there being so many ways to draw extra cards now because of the clues, just making your land drops early in the game is so important because even if you flood out a little bit, you can come back. You see both of these games, the players who have missed land drops early on in the game have been buried, and the person who is making their land drops is still not running out of gas because they're able to draw so many cards with the clues.
The clues are sweet.
Yes.
I like them.
More lands. Put more lands in your deck.
You
should probably be doing that anyway, but if there's a lot of clues floating around, you should be playing with even more lands. It's way better to have a little bit too much mana than a little bit too little.
And sometimes they're just giving you clues.
Yes.
Declaration Stone.
Yep.
So you want to be able to crack those things, draw some cards, and be able to cast your spells, of course. So Andrew Tenjum, Daniel Ward will be playing game number 3 in just a moment. However, States is right around the corner, and if you like this big white deck, which we did a deck tech with Kent Ketter, or this Bant Company deck, which Jim Davis won with Baltimore, you can play that at States next weekend if you're not qualified for Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad. You can find more about that tournament right now.
On April 23rd and 24th, don't miss the StarCityGames.com State and Provincial Championships. With Standard on Saturday and Modern on Sunday throughout the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico, there are plenty of chances to become a champion. Every player that registers receives an exclusive art print, top 8 competitors receive an exclusive playmat and pin, and each champion receives a championship playmat, medal, and an invitation to any of the next 3 StarCityGames.com invitationals. Each event will also include an oversized token door prize customized with their location. Visit go.starcitygames.com/states to learn how to become a champion today.
Next weekend, become a champion at your states and provincial championships. And Patrick, look, man.
Looking to trade a California token for a New Jersey token. Who can help me out here?
First of all, it's not a token, it's an oversized card. It's gigantic.
Okay.
But
all right. Is that like the first prize sort of deal?
No,
or
it's
is
a door prize.
A door prize.
Door
okay.
prize. You come in, random person wins it.
All right.
So I can see.
Whoever gets the New Jersey one, find me. We can talk.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Patrick Sullivan putting out a bounty on the New Jersey oversized states land.
You know where to find me.
Yep. It's at Basic Mountain on Twitter. Mm-hmm. That's where you can find it, man. I might pay a pretty price.
I don't know what the art piece is.
Does it matter?
I would prefer it if it's Washington crossing the Delaware, but I'll take. There's a lot of other iconic New Jersey imagery that I would accept as well.
I hate to break it to you, It's neither of those things. There's no
okay.
Washington crossing the Delaware.
Yeah, I guess it's some brand dissonance. General Washington isn't in Dominia or whatever.
No, he's not. But I will see. I will see what I can do.
To my knowledge,
yeah.
Matthias is better with the flavor of stuff than I am, so I don't want to speak out of turn.
Yeah. Was George Washington rocking and rolling around Dominaria? Probably not.
Yeah.
General Washington, whatever. I know it's a big deal for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if we can get our designs for our playmats to be more history-laden.
Yes.
That's all.
Please.
Kristen and Andrea, they're here this weekend.
Yeah.
Signing various things. So we can have a chat.
Yeah, there's a nice artist presence at this event.
Absolutely.
A lot of artists, a lot of our altruists.
A lot of players, too.
Yeah, over 700 largest of all time.
Yeah, players are rolling in here for the Standard Open. Just a moment. But the attention right now is on round number 9 of our Columbus Invitational, where Andrew Tenjum and Dan Ward are 7-1 for Tenjum. It's a great start towards him qualifying for the Players' Championship. He's in 3rd place on the SCG Tour leaderboard right now. If that holds up, he's good to go to Roanoke at the end of the year for the PC.
Yes, but this is one of the spots where the tournament being so large is a detriment to Tenjum, because even a top 64 would do a lot to cushion his position. And he's going to have to win a lot more matches today to get to that point.
Underway here in game number 3. Dan Ward will start for the Forest, Tenjum with the Plains. We go Dan Ward's way. A Plains, a Sylvan Advocate. For Tenjum, he'll draw. Another Plains, and there's a Silk Wrap. You see the enchantment removal quite a bit here for Andrew. There's a Yapamaya Coast and now a Jace for Mr. Ward. He's got to pay 1. So he'll fall down to 19. We pass the turn back over to Mr. Tenjum. Does he have land number 3? Uh-oh. Maybe a Knight of the White Orchid? Oh, yeah. Search it up with the Plains. Get all that value.
This is a card that has definitely gone up in stock with the way the new mana bases look like. And the fact that it's easier to play monocolor decks with a lot of mana symbols than it is to play the 4 or 5 color decks that are spread all around like in last Standard.
Another Plains and a Declaration in Stone. Goodbye, Jace. Have a clue. Dan Ward, he'll draw his 4th turn of the game. But does he have his 4th land of the game? He does have a Reflector Mage. Not sure he wants a Reflector Mage this Knight of the White Orchid, though.
If Ward is missing land drops himself, if he doesn't have a 4th land, it's not so bad to do. I agree it's a little awkward. You don't want to be bouncing value creatures, but it's probably better to do this than to simply pass the turn.
Well, the Mage does come down. Ward's got to take 1 to cast it off the Yapamaya Coast, so he falls down to 18. Knight of the White Orchid back in Tenjum's hand. There's a Caves of Koilos. And now a couple of creatures, an Eldrazi Displacer and Knight of the White Orchid. Can't recast that, however, because of Reflector Mage. So now all Tenjum can do is pass the turn back. Ward will draw. And we'll see what comes next here for Dan. Perhaps it's time to cash in a clue.
Ward's deck does not do a whole lot stuck on 3 lands.
Yep. This is one of those things that we kind of talked about a lot last week in Baltimore when we watched Jim Davis and Kevin Jones play this Band Company deck, but they didn't have issues with their mana. They drew enough and they drew all the right colors. For Dan Ward, it's kind of the story of Game 2 and now Game 3. But it's the risk you take when you're playing a 3-color deck in this format.
We don't see a whole lot of it, and it's not by accident. The mana for 3-color decks is not as reliable. Ward's issues have been more about just making land drops in general than colored mana, although Game 1 he was without white for a long time. It's no accident. We're seeing a lot more 2-color and 1-color decks.
Well, here's Shimoka's Commander. You had a feeling this card was going to play a big role in things. And now Ward is going to attempt to put a +1/+1 counter onto his Reflector Mage and make Tenjum sacrifice an enchantment.
If Tenjum's got nothing to interact with this is a disaster.
Well, he's got Eldrazi Displacer, but you don't really want to displace a Reflector Mage right now.
Yeah,
so
that's like your turn, and the Dromoka's Command is still going to get the enchantment.
Yep.
So
this gets a touch difficult now for Tenjum. No real great responses. Or at least it appears that way.
Because the sacrifice of an enchantment still targets a player.
Mm-hmm.
So even if he fizzles the +1/+1 counter on target creature, there's still something. There's still a target in the spell. It still resolves.
Well, Tenjum's going to figure out what he wants to do. All right, this is going to resolve. Put a counter on the mage. Advocate's back. And now there might be some blocking to be done. Tenjum looks as though he might be casting a stasis snare. Tapping 3 mana very carefully here in this spot. All right, he's going to... Wow, he's going to let that Reflector Mage in. Okay. Maybe he just wants it to be a 2/3 creature. I mean, it's that or his creature dies, because you can't displace or displace her.
Yes.
So
it's an ugly turn no matter
yeah.
what. Tenjum can't avoid the turn being really bad there.
hey, you talked about it. You said Dromoka's command can play a huge role. It did that turn.
Now, if Ward's still stuck on 3 lands here, and Tenjum's making his land drops and has things to do, may not matter very much. But Dromoka's command was excellent there, and if Ward had a little bit more on the front foot going into that turn, that could have really swung the game around in his favor.
Might be time to go cashing in a clue.
It's a tough spot because I'm sure Ward has plenty of mediocre plays to make for 3 mana, and he's got to determine whether or not he'd rather try to break the clue for land number 4 and give up the turn, or just continue to make middling 3 mana plays.
Advocate and Reflector Mage coming into the red zone. Tenjum, no good blocks, so he'll take that damage. And now all Ward can do is pass the turn back. So now I'm curious to see what's going on in Dan's hand, because he has not cashed the clue, and he wants to represent something right now.
He has an incentive to break the clue on his own turn if all he's looking for is land number 4, because he has multiple lands that enter the battlefield tapped, Lumbering Falls, Evolving Wilds. So if he's not cracking the clue, to me it represents he has some way to play back on this turn.
For Tenjum, it's an Eldrazi Displacer. Which he should be able to recast, because Reflector Mage has some weird text, but all that happened on Tenjum's turn.
Yes.
So that's the turn cycle, so now he can recast it. All right, he does have a way to play back. Bounding Crassus.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yep.
He's got an interest in breaking the clue on his own turn to look for a land, so if he didn't do that, it's because he's got something to do.
Displacer will be tapped. Pass that turn back. Ward will draw. Still on the hunt for land number 4, and preferably a land that enters the battlefield untapped, and he found one. It's a Prairie Stream. 2 basics conveniently out there, so may have been the perfect land. It's also a blue mana that doesn't damage him, as now here come the beatdowns. Every creature coming into the red zone. For Tenjum, we might see a little bit of displacement here. We will. He'll displace the Bounding Crassus. Shut down the Knight. 4 damage will come through. Tenjum down to 12. Now, we did see in Tenjum's sideboard some copies of Hallowed Moonlight. You wonder if Dan's playing around that card right now. He does have Eclectic Company in his hand.
I don't know if it's on his radar there because the shields were down. So if he was playing around Hallowed Moonlight, he would want to collect a company on his own turn. That exposes you to all sorts of pain on the way back. There could be sweepers in Tenjum's deck for all you know, so it's a hard squeeze.
And Tenjum does have Planar Outburst in his sideboard, so almost kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
And the card in Ward's hand could be Ojutai's Command. That could be the card here.
Very true.
There's a lot going on both sides here.
A Westvale Abbey here from Tenjum. That's land number 8. Tenjum's got access to a lot of Displacer activations and quite a few cards in hand. Now, land number 8 is actually significant. 1, because it's Westvale Abbey, a significant card, but as you see, Ward resolving Eclectic Company, that's also Avacyn plus Displacer mana. So we're getting into some interesting gameplay here as this Eclectic Company is resolving for Dan Ward.
And it's dangerous, too, because both players do take some risks here by trying to squeeze out as much value out of their tricks as possible, because the other deck has a bunch of instants in it as well.
Bounding Crassus and a Duskwatch Recruiter come down. The Crassus will tap down the Displacer.
You know, if your plan here is to really get Ward with Archangel Avacyn, and the instant in his hand turns out to be Ojutai's Command, that's a disaster.
Beatdowns. Everybody with the Recruiter. Does Tenjum have a play to make? Quite a few cards in hand. The obvious one, of course, is just displacer activations, but I'm sure he'd like to do a little bit better than that.
That's only, getting him so far here, and with Ward missing land drops, he's got a handful of gas. So Tenjum's got to make some efforts to stabilize the game. He can't simply tap 2 creatures down with the displacer, take 2 damage, and go to his turn, because Ward's going to be playing more and more spells.
Tenjum going to go a reach in here. Curious to see what he is up to. Looks like 6 mana going to be tapped. Maybe we've just got a Westvale Abbey activation. We do. Huh. Was not expecting that.
Well, this allows him to use the Knight of the Reliquary to get one of these creatures off the battlefield, which is something.
Sure, the Knight of the White Orchid.
Or the Knight of the White Orchid, yeah. Since right now its stats just don't line up with anything, except for the Recruiter, which Ward didn't attack with. So this is still looks like a fairly anemic turn, unless he also has a Silk Wrap to get something else off the battlefield.
Yeah, he's going to need it next turn.
Yeah.
He's got to do a little bit more than what he's doing now. You see a double block here on the Sylvan Advocate. It leads me to believe that Tenjum's hand's just not very strong.
Yeah, this is a very soft turn here from Tenjum. I was expecting more. 3 cards in hand. My best guess at this point is just flooding out.
I also think that maybe the hope was that Ward wouldn't make an attack like this because he was representing Archangel Avacyn. And, he was also just representing 8 mana up. Maybe the thought was maybe Dan will be a little scared to come onto the red zone with all these creatures, but that is very clearly not the case. More than happy to attack. So he'll organize the blockers here. Knight first. The Westvale Abbey Human Cleric token second.
To some extent, the Westvale Abbey forces his hand, though, because he can't just say, all right, go, and just let Tenjum start doing that.
It's true.
He kind of has to push here, even if he doesn't have a great answer to Archangel Avacyn in hand.
Well, damage will be dealt. Some creatures are going to die. Looks like Advocate down. Tenjum's going to fall down to 3. Well, Ward will just pass the turn back, transform his werewolf. Say go. So he's not willing to make a move, but as you mentioned, doesn't mean he has nothing. He can certainly have Oceanized Command, Collected Company, Dromoka's Command, bunch of stuff. That's what makes this deck powerful, is that it plays so well at instant speed.
It makes it a natural home to put in powerful werewolves, too, because you can play that game very smoothly.
Tenjum with a land there in a Plains. Does he have Planner Outburst? 6 mana. Now this could be Linvala the Preserver. It is. Does it resolve is the question. It does not. Ojutai Command will take care of that. That was kind of Tenjum's last hurrah, I think.
These 4 mana spells in the matchup here, both of them are excellent. Collected Company and Ojutai's Command. Most of Tenjum's ways to stabilize the game involve resolving a large creature, so Ojutai's Command is just perfect.
For Ward, Ojutai's Command counters the Linvala, gets back to Sylvan Advocate, and that is going to do it. Dan Ward's going to win this match over Andrew Tenjum. 2-1. He'd found that 4th land just in time, and Bant Company will take care of Big White. Dan Ward moves on to 8-1.
And I think Dromoka's Command's a huge swing card for this matchup. Tenjum trying to keep the board clean, mostly with enchantments. Creatures like Eldrazi Displacer that don't necessarily line up that well with Dromoka's Command fight and +1/+1 counter mode. It didn't come up that frequently, but in that game, even though it wasn't a 10 out of 10 Dromoka's Command, it was still enough to catch Ward back up in a game where he was missing land drops.
An impressive win and a more impressive display of what